Hello everybody, my name is Andrea Carey Fuller. I'm the new chair of the Ella Roberta Family Foundation. A very warm welcome on this International Women's Day, celebrating the achievements of women across the world. We've had lots going on in the foundation in the past year. It's been a very important year, which Rosamund's going to go into later on. We've made lots of progress, but as always, there's more to do. There's always more to do. It's a never-ending fight, as you know, for clean air. And we're here today to celebrate the voices of women who are campaigning for clean air across the world and continuing the conversation that we began last year on International Women's Day to see just how far some of those achievements have got, what they're working on now and what more there is to do. So I'm just going to pass you on to a woman called Penny Hosie, and she is a clean air advocate and writer, and she's going to host the day and ask the questions of all of the wonderful campaigners we've got here with us. And I'll come back to you later. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and welcome to everyone today on International Women's Day. It's wonderful to speak to you here from London, a very sunny London. I think it would be great for all the speakers to start the event, for all the speakers to introduce themselves, please. Starting with Dr. Maria Neira, Jenny Jones, Bhavreen, and then Rosamund. Please, can you introduce yourselves?
Good morning and happy International Women's Day. I am Maria Neira, and I'm the director of the Department of Environment, Climate Change and Health at the World Health Organization. A sunny day in Geneva as well, so give us a positive signal for this meeting. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Jenny Jones. I'm one of the two Green Party peers sitting in the House of Lords, and I've been working on air pollution or trying to prevent it since about 2000, and it's fantastic that so many women have got together to deal with this. Oh, sorry, by the way, happy International Women's Day. Obviously, every day should be Women's Day, and it is a privilege to be invited here to talk to you today.
Thank you, Jenny. Bhavreen?
Sorry, I couldn't mute. Yeah, I'm Bhavreen Kandhari, well, a parent, a very concerned parent, and an air campaigner for about 2 decades, which is almost a dream for me to get clean air here in a city which is the most polluted capital of the world. And thank you, Rosamund. You are so inspiring, and all of you here that have bringing these very ordinary citizen voices onto a platform that makes a little bit difference, to all our politicians and governments. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavreen. Rosamund, I don't think you need an introduction. I'm going to allow you to talk about yourself.
Hello, my name is Rosamund Kissi Debrah, and I'm the founder of Ella Roberta Family Foundation that I set up in her memory. And today is exactly 9 years to the day that she was buried. So after this, I think we got quite used to this. I head to the cemetery right after this, and I'm also the Breathe Life ambassador. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, Rosamund. I think it would be really good to start with Dr. Neira, because it's been quite a year. It's been quite a landmark year, actually, with the coroner's decision linking Ella's tragic death from asthma to air pollution. We've had the COVID pandemic that's still been happening and continues to be around. And also the year ended with COP26. It was also the year that the World Health Organization set new guidelines. I just wanted to know if you had Ella's case in mind, Dr. Neira, when setting the new targets, and what difference will they make to families all around the world?
Thank you, and it's really a pleasure to be with all of you, and a privilege, because Rosamund has been an incredible hero, and I think part of my mission now will be, with the little capacity I have, will be to make sure that the experience that she has been leading in UK could be replicated in as many countries as possible. So I hope that this all together today can help on that. We need to internationalize the role of Rosamund, and what she did has to be well known by other countries. And not only that, we need to move mountains now and change that legislation in as many countries as possible. And that's why we have as well the new air quality guidelines. Was Ella in our mind when we started to do the air quality guidelines? Believe me that the moment I knew about Ella's case and I met Rosamund, she's very present on my life as well. Of course, the pain that Rosamund is carrying and is something that I'm sure that the dimensions we cannot even imagine that, but it's certainly a big motivation that we don't want other children around the world having this the same problems. Some people say that our guidelines are ambitious. I say, how can you call it ambition? There is no ambition big enough when you talk about public health. I mean, we need to go for more. When we did the report for COP26, that we call it the health argument for climate action, we dedicated the health argument to Ella, to little Ella, which is something very exceptional and rare in WHO's documents. You know, we refer to the expert groups and things like that. Normally we do not dedicate documents, but this was too strong. So we managed to go around all of our legal and procedures, and we dedicated. I know that it's a very small tribute, but it tells you the importance we give to this the life of this girl and the work of her mom on changing policies on the quality of air. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Neira. That's really quite moving, actually. I just wondered if you could tell us, as a doctor, why do you think women and girls bear a disproportionate health burden, and how would the new guidelines help to make their lives better?
There are two things. One, the guidelines are done just because we know now more about what are the levels, the standards that can be recommended on the key pollutants that are the ones that will be protecting health. So it's not a question of deciding which ones. It's saying, okay, we need to protect health. That is our motivation and our raison d'etre. You know, the reason why we are doing these guidelines is because we want to protect people's health. So we look at these 6 more important pollutants, and we say, okay, those are the ones that now the governments, the mayors, the policymakers, and us as citizens, we need to put pressure on them. We need to achieve if we want to protect people's health. What do we think about why women will be more exposed? You know, when we look at air pollution, we are all exposed. I mean, if you live in Delhi, and I'm sure that Bhavreen will tell us more than that, everybody's exposed. But if you are rich, you are certainly the possibility of select certain parts of the city where the area is less polluted, or you have gardens around your where you live, or you are not exposed to the traffic congestion of a very important road if you are living there. So definitely there is a factor related to the poverty or the social status. And in addition to that, because women are more vulnerable, or they stay at home, or they take care of the children, in most parts of the world, air pollution is very much affecting a woman. If we look specifically at the household indoor air pollution, we have almost half of the world population is still cooking like in the Stone Age, you know, on an open fire and putting on the open fire whatever is available. The girls are the ones collecting this wood or coal or whatever you put on your open fire, and the women and girls are the ones staying at home cooking and therefore inhaling that. So it's a clear demonstration that women and children, because they are in the back of the mom when they are very, very small, or running around and staying at the house level. So definitely there is a clear impact on the most vulnerable population, the less economically, where they have less well-being, and on women as well. But We don't want to be victims. The women can be the ones as well now that will move mountains, change things. And, you know, this is irreversible, this movement. So women are the ones that will provide this qualitative change that we need now, and the level of ambition, because nothing will mobilize all of us than the health of our children. That for sure.
Thank you, Dr. Neira. I guess this is a good opportunity to bring Bhavreen into the conversation, because it's women's testimonies and lived experiences that will really help form the narrative moving forward to help make a difference. Bhavreen, I know you're mother to two children. You live in one of the most polluted parts of the world, in Delhi, in India, as you referenced in your intro. Can you tell me a little bit more how you got involved in campaigning?
Yes, Penny, thank you for asking that, because it's been a long journey. I was involved, I mean, at that point of time when my girls were born in 2003, we were just learning about the air and how dirty it was, and we were looking at the London smog and trying to bring facts together. But then obviously we are citizens and we are not experts. So we needed to, join hands with a lot of doctors, and there were not many who were coming out and saying that openly. So there was only research and more of advocacy and denial. The government was in denial. And my girls were born, and they were special. They were also very premature, 6-month-old babies. And as they grew in the first year and the second year, they wouldn't, get rid of the colds and the coughs. I mean, they were nonstop for months and almost a year, till the time you would, step out of your city, for a summer holiday. It would magically go in a day. So this was a very, eye-opener that, yes, there is something wrong. But, as my Indian, the elder community would say, it's an allergy. Don't worry, it must be some allergy. But like, I was studying a bit more and I knew it wasn't. And I knew there were more parents like me who must have been concerned at that time. So this campaign became very personal, and it I was more aggressive to do. But, unfortunately, I just, I'm feeling, so I've been saying this for the last month, that in December they turned 18, and it has taken me 18 years to fight this battle, but I have been able to give them only damaged lungs, So my heart goes out, to Rosamund, that what she had to go through. Of course, no mom should ever have to go through that. But as a mother also seeing this, that, yeah, I see that when somebody tells me, yeah, the studies tell me that my kids will live 10 years less, because they are living in this city, is also heartbreaking. Or I see that they will not have a normal life, in 20 years, they will be having a suffering. So this is exactly how, the concern of every parent is, who knows. And of course, we have the two sets of, people here in this country, which is, we are, of course, a little privileged, but the underprivileged, who don't even know, and they don't have the time to know or even work on it, because they are just, too busy meeting their ends. And those are the people, like Dr. Maria just rightly said, we call it the chula in India, where they do, cooking on, whether the wood. Coal is also less likely because they don't have the money. And we had schemes and all which came, to give them the LPG, and the government was supposed to support. But during COVID now, the LPG has gone like 3 times more expensive, and there is no way they can ever buy that. So they are back to, the wooden burning wood, and that is absolutely disastrous. So that's just one of the things. I mean, there are just so many ways that the women are facing the brunt of air pollution much more than anyone else. Yeah, so this is how it is. Yeah.
Thank you, Bhavreen, for sharing your story. Were you able to share your story on the world stage at COP26?
Yeah, that was, of course, now COP26 was like now in 2020 during the COVID. Many of the moms, we were seeing each other's work, and we joined hands and we formed this group called the Warrior Moms. And the group of mothers fighting for clean air, and various cities of the country, and different, even the rural. So there was a representation of all of us. I was there, but yes, there were many behind me who were, very concerned. And we didn't, as Warrior Moms, we were very, very, disappointed with the phase down and the coal getting so many years still to survive because we are working with many mothers who are in the rural area of Odisha and, Bihar, and these coal plants who are suffering, who are, in a terrible thing. They're fighting. In fact, the way they are fighting, it's unbelievable for justice and for clean air. But obviously it's not being heard. So that is what we wanted to take across to the COP. And so we were a little bit, we were clashing with what was happening and not agreeing with the 50 years of coal phase down. It's not going to work. I can done and will be done. Yeah.
I can imagine that must have been a very disappointing message to hear, that it would take 50 years to get rid of coal. If I can bring in Dr. Neira to this as well, just to reflect on COP26 and all the actions. It must have been really great for you to see lots of campaigning going on, lots of groups being formed, and lots of young women being, their activism coming to the fore. I think we may have Choked Up in the audience today. They're a group of teen campaigners. I don't know if they want to just give us a wave. Choked Up, are any of you here today? Oh, I'm not sure if they are, but they're a group of teen-age campaigners who live locally to us in Lewisham, who found their voice and have really campaigned quite hard on air quality issues, which is great. Thank you, Bhavreen, for sharing your story. I'd really like to allow all of you to have your say. So, speaking of influential campaigners, I'd like to bring Jenny Jones into this because her work's been really influential, inspiring. She has done lots of work in the House of Lords influencing the Environment Act. Jenny, can you tell me a little bit more about this and the important role that women can play when it comes to the public consultation on PM 2.5, which is starting in a few weeks? Why is it important that they get involved?
Well, obviously, it's important women get involved in absolutely every aspect of politics, and I'm very happy to support anybody who's trying to do that. Before I go on, perhaps I could say it was very emotional listening to Bhavreen, and it made me feel a little bit as if I tackle this issue of air pollution on a slightly helicopter level, because I'm trying to target other politicians and, of course, the government. And that's where all of my sort of emphasis goes. And I connected very strongly when Bhavreen said the government was in denial. That's exactly what we've got here in Britain. And it's partly in denial, but it's also partly that they constantly want technological changes rather than social changes, because technological changes are obviously much easier. You clean up the cars, you create roads where people don't slow down as much and so on. That sort of thing is easier than actually convincing a lot of people perhaps to leave their cars behind or to heat their houses differently. And so governments constantly avoid taking on any sort of vested interests, and that's where I try to put pressure. I think when we talk about the impact women can have, even today it's obvious that women are more involved in their families, they're more involved in their children, and so they care more about the issues of health. Close to where I live in London, there's an old town hall, and it's got a motto carved in stone, and it says, the health of the people is the highest good. And that's something that I use all the time, because actually being healthy, it's what society needs. It takes a huge pressure off the NHS. It means that children in school can achieve their absolute best instead of spending time at home ill. And so women, I feel it's almost surplus to say that women have got to be involved, because they present perhaps a more human aspect of why we have to fight so much with air pollution. Perhaps I can just mention something that Maria said. She said, we have to internationalize Rosamund. But actually, Rosamund is already internationalized. She is on hugging terms with Arnold Schwarzenegger. which I am extremely jealous about. He's one of my heroes and has been for about 40 years. And I've only ever shaken his hand. So Rosamund is on her way to being incredibly famous nationally. I was also fascinated by the comment about choked up teenage campaigners in Lewisham, and I'd really love to meet them if there's an opportunity anytime.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, and I'm sure they'd love to meet you. I mean, I'm friends with one of the mums of one of the teen campaigners, and just collectively, I think they've done a brilliant work publicising how air quality is really poor in this part of London, across all of London, and many parts of the world. Dr. Maria Neira, I think, how moved were you by Bhavreen's talk earlier? Is it personal stories that will help drive some improvements forward? I mean, Jenny Jones seems to think the narrative is really important too. Do you agree with that?
Well, I cannot agree more. Yes, the narrative is extremely important. And in fact, I think we need to change the tactics we have been used to communicate about climate change, air pollution, and health. First, for us in WHO, climate change and air pollution is the same agenda. I mean, they have been trying to stop us because they wanted to focus on climate change and avoiding to bring to the political table of negotiations the 7 million premature deaths occurring every year caused by air pollution. They tried to push that far away, but that is done. I mean, we managed years ago when we negotiated the resolution on air pollution, we put very clearly the strong connections with climate change. For the health professionals, I mean, from a health point of view, the causes are very similar. At least they overlap on 75%, which is the combustion of fossil fuels. Then all the measures that you have on the climate change mitigation agenda, all of them one by one, if you take it, they are nothing else than a basic public health agenda. All of the Paris Treaty, if you take it, all of them, in fact, they are doing the work of the public health, because all of those measures, if implemented, of course, not just committed, but implemented and forced, those will generate enormous health benefits for humans. And among those benefits, the most immediate and the biggest dimension will be the one coming from the reduction on the exposure to air pollution and all of that. So health has to be the motivation. So climate change and air pollution all together. Second, we need to change the narrative as well in terms of being a little bit less apocalyptic and a little bit more positive. Why? Because, you know, human nature has limits as well. We went through a pandemic. Now we are facing another terrible humanitarian disaster and war. Who could imagine that? So I think we can't go beyond the capacity as humans we have to absorb bad news. And in fact, all of this about air pollution is not bad news. It could be transferred if we are smart as a society, if we are intelligent, if we are strategic. In fact, it's a lot of common sense behind. If you tackle the causes of climate change, you will reduce the air pollution. And by doing so, you will reduce the horrible amount of deaths we have every year. You will contribute to a more sustainable economy. You will generate green jobs. You will have a more sustainable environment. You will be able to do more, less sedentary lifestyle. You will reduce non-communicable diseases. I mean, name it. You will have more social interaction, and because you will reduce mental health problems. So all of those benefits are the ones that needs to be put in our narrative on a positive way to convince people to do more. Other ways, the risk is to paralyze. I mean, people now are saying, okay, I feel totally disempowered with this war situation. What can I do? I feel frustrated. Well, if you look as well, I don't want to make simplistic conclusions, but again, the issue of the sources of energy is quite linked as well at the potential conflict. So we need to think in positive, propose in positive, force and use that positive argument to motivate our people. And if we put all of those health arguments, health benefits that can be obtained, I think this can be an incredible engine, an incredible motivation to move finally this climate change and air pollution agenda on an incredible way, because until now even the IPCC was extremely good, but giving terrible, I mean, very negative situation, very negative scenario, which is the real one. I'm not reducing the drama of that. On the contrary, the scenario is so bad. But because of that, come on, our reaction needs to be at that level as well. And to do that, we need to motivate people to take action, from teenagers. That's another thing that maybe not now, but if we can comment later, all of those youth movements, teenagers and all of that, we need to make sure that they are motivated to change things and not just to depress, because at the moment most of them, they are really depressed when they look at the world and the environment we are living for them. So that as well. We have a huge responsibility there. Over.
I think I feel like clapping you, Dr. Neira. I think that's brilliant what you've just said, the public health aspect and be more positive, and also galvanizing young people, because they're the future. Surely there's got to be hope. They've got to have something to grasp and move forward with a positive attitude and spirit. And I think many of the teen movements, they may be depressed, but they also, that it is a positive thing that they're involved in these conversations. I know Rosamund shares many of your views. I'd like to bring her in, please. Rosie, I think you've gone through so much, your own personal stories out there, you're making lots of inroads into putting air quality on the map. Can you tell me what your focus is at the moment moving forward? What would you like to see happen in the clean air world, and how can women and young people be involved?
Well, absolutely. Shortly, by I think the end of this month, the government is bringing out a consultation on PM, which was one of the coroner's. It was actually the coroner's first recommendations, that in order to clean up the air, the government needs to deal with that. So it is coming at the end of the month, and it is only out there for 8 weeks. I stress to everybody here in your network, let them know to share this. This is going to be hugely important. And we will find out later from Baroness Jones how this consultation will hopefully impact the Environment Act. I think it's very important to stress to people on here, but I will be working tirelessly to galvanize the public and business to take this consultation very seriously. And the other big projects, as I've got on, the second recommendation was about raising awareness. And next year will be 10 years that Ella sadly passed. And we have the sculptress here who will mention, we have a pollution absorbing sculpture that is going to be in Mansfield Park, which has just been approved by the council, and Mayor Khan agreed on Friday to actually back it. Not only will it be a reminder, obviously, of what Els went through, but it's about conversations that can happen around there. A lot of our interviews take place in Mansfield Park, and it's about raising awareness. The coroner agreed, in amongst the general public, awareness is still quite low. And what I'm talking about is the detrimental impact on health. So for example, since COVID, 100,000 people are waiting to get a diagnosis due to their lungs, because spirometry was suspended due to that. And I am now learning that lung disease is the poor man's disease. And this may answer many questions why there isn't such emphasis or such funding towards lung disease. And hopefully maybe next year when we come back, I can get the chief executive of Asthma UK to join us to talk more about this. But what I want people to look out for is the consultation that will be dropping very, very soon. And if we don't engage, I believe it will be an opportunity missed. And the government will then say, well, we put this out to consultation and, you know, the public really we're not really, I know there's a lot going on. We've got the war, we've got come April, taxes are going up, national insurance, we've got the energy crisis. But without your health, you have nothing. And this is something, please, I stress to everybody here to please take part in it, but to also share it. People who aren't part of this movement, because clean air affects all of us. It's linked to most of the diseases you can think of. You know, if you live near a main road, especially in London, you've got 20% more chance of getting lung cancer. It is linked to different cancers, it's linked to cardiovascular, it's linked to dementia, and there's a rise in that, cognitive development, miscarriages, stillbirth, everything. So it is, you know, PM2 is 2.5 is one of the worst, the pollutant there actually is, you know, from diesel, from industrial combustion. So this, and also from wood burning, I must dread that. And, you know, we've heard already about wood burning. So my plea is, this is a moment in time, and for people to get involved, Penny.
No, absolutely, Rosamund. And I guess that sort of links to my next question, which was about Dr. Ian Mudway, who spoke to the London Assembly last week to talk to them about the dangers of building schools, hospitals, not hospitals, schools and homes next to main roads. This is nothing new. Why is this happening when it's so dangerous to build them so close to a busy main road?
I mean, I have said this constantly. I understand we need homes, I understand we need schools, but after all the evidence that is out there, to build them on main roads is criminal. And we won't see the repercussions now. There'll be 10 years down the line. So to expect young children from reception age of maybe 4 or 5 to walk along these busy schools and main roads, that's the reason why my daughter is not here for today. And I don't understand it. And it's something that locally people need to fight against it. It is, you know, to build a school on a busy main road and a road is not acceptable. And it's not going to be solved by having filters in the school and things like that to combat it. Look, women's voices are very powerful. These politicians are after votes, and we actually need to use it. We've got an election, even a local election coming up shortly, and I want people to put air pollution high on that agenda. What is your council doing? Are they communicating with you? Have they solved the air pollution? It was number 3 last year on Londoners over the mayoral election. And I will say it again, no, it's not very popular. Where people can, they should, you know, walk their children to school, not drive to school, and especially not idle. Idling is against the law, and every opportunity I get, I seem to mention that. I'm going to speak to the Air Quality Minister about maybe having proper national signs to do with no idling, because I know local councils have put up local signs, but they don't seem to be working. But today on International Women's Day, women are extremely powerful, and I asked with myself and Bhavreen for as many women to join Warrior Mums. It's going to be up to us to make this change. We can't wait we can't wait anymore, really. 250,000 children in London have asthma. And those numbers, by the way, they're not going down, they're going the other way. So that's about 3 to 4 children in every classroom. And it's about time we said enough is enough.
Absolutely. And I thank you for your work, because you've really raised the profile of all these of all the ways that air quality affects children and families all around the world, and women as well. If I can bring the talk of the PM 2.5 back to Jenny Jones, because this is a very important consultation that the government is bringing about. I know that you were very disappointed when the coroner the coroner's recommendations weren't added to the Environment Act. Can you give a bit of context to that, please, Jenny, for people who may not be fully up to speed on everything, and the PM 2.5 consultation, how it all works, what the processes are, etc.?
One of the problems that we have with this government, and there are a huge number of problems, is that it knows what the right thing to do is. It could have just taken the coroner's advice and enacted that and put it into the Environment Bill, but it chose not to, because of partly the reasons I mentioned before about how it is so incredibly difficult to create behaviour change. And they don't, when they don't want to do something, they start a consultation. And this is true of the sewage going into our rivers, or the use of single-use plastic, or why haven't we got a return bottle scheme and so on. It's because the government drags its feet on anything it thinks is going to hit at the economy in any way, and it just doesn't see its way through to actually improving the economy for people and not just for businesses. I would like to say as well that on the issue of main roads, we really should be understanding that main roads shouldn't be that busy. But, you know, it's not just a case of every vehicle becoming electric, because that, I mean, it's still a vehicle that can kill people and crash into them and do some quite nasty damage. We should actually be reducing traffic, and there's all sorts of ways that you can do that. In France, for example, I don't know if they still have it, but they had a train that went through the countryside, picked up farmers' deliveries of food and various things, and brought it into Paris, and people could actually go to the station onto the platform and they could buy food direct from farmers. That's the sort of very creative thing that we should be thinking about here in Britain. And I don't know if I'm taking this too wide, but what we're actually doing is having all sorts of trade deals with countries like New Zealand and Australia, lovely countries, but actually they have lower welfare standards, and of course then you have to transport the food. So there's all sorts of ways that we can reduce air pollution, and it's not just as simple as not building, because we've got to build the hospital and schools somewhere, and it would be great if we could build them you know, in tiny villages all over London and all over cities, but that's not going to work. So we have to clean up the pollution at source. And of course, it is a case with this government that they are resistant. And so it is incredibly important that we get involved in the consultation, because they need to understand that there is a strong feeling about this. But what Rosamund said just now, i.e. tackle your local councillors, tackle your MP, and it doesn't matter which political party they are, you absolutely have to tackle them and push very, very hard on this, and invite them to meetings so that they can hear from, you know, from warrior mums here in Britain, and you know, just so they understand that this is an issue people care about, and they will change their votes for it if they don't listen. We are going to see, I hope, some big changes, you know, generally in society, because as Maria pointed out, air pollution links to climate change. It also links to the war in Ukraine, because at the moment the government is talking about, and all sorts of people are talking about, replacing Russian oil and gas with somebody else's oil and gas, even our own oil and gas. But actually we have to just stop using them. And to do that, we need the most massive onslaught for renewables, so that we can just build up our own supplies of non-polluting power. And that is going to be, that's going to be quite difficult, but I think more and more people are going to do it for themselves, whether it's solar panels or you know, ground source heat pumps and that sort of thing. And so a lot of politicians don't understand that everything is connected, and that you can't really talk about air pollution without thinking about technology. You can't do it without thinking about the NHS. You can't do it without thinking about climate change and the war in Ukraine, because Russia is so powerful because of all its oil and gas rubles. So it's us who have to challenge politicians. Obviously, we can do things for ourselves as well, but challenging politicians can make, well, you can make my life easier, you know, if you change the format of the Commons, because at the moment the government has a majority of 80 plus MPs, and that means they push everything through. And that was part of the problem with the Environment Bill, that they were pushing it through too fast. They create these big bills that we want. I don't know how many people know what the House of Lords does, but basically it looks at all the legislation and it looks at it line by line, word by word, and then we try to improve it. And on the Environment Bill, that's exactly what we did. But, you know, the government wasn't having any of it, and it pulled out a lot of our improvements and just pushed the bill through. We're seeing it again and again. And yeah, if we could just get rid of some of the Conservative MPs, you know, I haven't got anything against individuals personally, but boy, they make terrible legislation.
Thank you, Jenny. I guess an important point you made is about a kind of, you didn't use these words exactly, but it's about having a holistic conversation. Going back to Maria's point, public health needs to be front and centre. It needs to be looking at the whole of society, you know, levelling up, looking at health inequities and really tackling, seeing what the data where the inequities lie, and really tackling this. Going back to making it.
You said it better than I did. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, I think you said it very well as well. I think this driving a positive force of change, because it's International Women's Day and it's all about the voice of women and how powerful women's voices can be as a collective, and hearing more stories like Bhavreen's story. Dr. Neira, how, and Rosamund, how can we make this more united? How can we all unite our voices as women to really push for change? Because I do feel this is a pivotal moment. There is so much bad stuff going on in the world. We need to really take action and change the rhetoric and make sure that our voices are heard. Any recommendations from the panel about how to do this? I'll throw it out to the panel.
Yeah, Penny, from my point of view, I think grassroots movements. I had a journalist come from Paris to interview me last week, and I was in a cafe which had a lot of young mums there. And I actually went up to them and spoke to them. And my question to them was whether they were concerned about air pollution from the South Circular. And much to my surprise, it was at the forefront of their minds. And I told them, obviously, we've got the consultation coming, but maybe this summer we could set up, you know, like a small group, and we could get together. I think grassroots movements are very, 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 very important. And also then locals will feel as if they are being involved. Right now, a lot of them feel as if things are being done to them. And that would be my advice. I like when I see all these groups spring up, you know, young people. We need to use them in a positive way. I think they were very frustrated at COP because they felt their voices weren't being heard, which is part of the issue, really. So maybe we need to have platforms like this for them, so that we can hear what they've got to say. I think it is really, really important that everybody feels involved. If you feel powerless and you feel that all the decisions are being made by others, then you won't actually engage. And that was my reasons for galvanizing people here today to take note of the consultation, which is coming out. If people say, well, I'm not going to do it, governments don't listen, then they're going to continue, as Jenny said, doing what they are doing. But I think it, you know, like you say, this is a moment we can't go back. And we've managed to get people on health now. So we've got the support from doctors. And it will be great, as Dr. Neira said, if we can get that worldwide, everyone from health involved. You see, the government will listen to doctors, or some doctors at least. But if they are a united voice, I think, you know, we will be more powerful. So to have people from health support us is going to be crucial. And you know what? They know what's going on, Penny, because they treat all these young children and the elderly as well. So they know firsthand what is happening. So we can't go back. And, you know, like Jenny said, we need to look at other sources, renewables, and wood burning, especially in places like London, really need to be outlawed, because even during COVID, PM did not go down. Nitrogen dioxide went down, obviously due to the there was less traffic on the road. But it's really interesting that PM stayed constant, and it'll be interesting to hear what I'm just looking forward to hearing what Jasmine's going to be saying about the pollution absorbing sculpture that she's creating in Ella's memory. So we need things like that to steer the public in the right direction. Jenny Jones mentioned about the behavior change, and it is really difficult, but that doesn't mean, I see this as very similar to smoking years and years and years ago. And I remember when the government brought in legislation for parents not to smoke in cars, and everyone was saying that's not going to work. I mean, look at where we are now. We don't have smoking in pubs and things like that. So things can be done. Yes, it takes quite a while, but we need not give up.
Penny, you are mute.
You're mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, I think your point about how we change the rhetoric is really important. And Dr. Neira, I believe you were at the you were speaking at some health forum where doctors met recently. Dr. Gosh, Rosamund, help me out here, please. The London summit that you attended.
Yeah, Chris Whitty and the CMO, who's going to write a report about air pollution later on this year. But it was everyone from health were making commitments in what they're going to be doing.
Yes, and I think having the united voice of the health professionals, more knowledge and awareness, and the voice of the public is going to be a really strong one to change things. Could you tell us a bit more about that health summit, please?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, please call me Maria. It's very unfair. You are not calling me by my name, and you are
sorry
fast like that. So, but please, unless you see me so old that you need to call me something else. Very disappointing. Anyway, let's go serious now. Yes, it was a very important health summit, and I am very grateful to the mayor who organized it. It's the second time that I attended. I think it's good, and I obtained at the end of that meeting a very important commitment from him to convene the other members of the C40. You know, he is the chair now of the C40. C40 is the association of mayors of the 40 most important cities around the world. I mean, most important in terms of population. So he will convene that meeting and that summit. And I mean, I'm giving a scoop here, so please don't quote me on this one. Anyway, we will look for solutions and keep moving this movement. Let's go back to the role of the health professionals. At that summit, as Rosamund said, most of the participants were very converted ones. I mean, the ones that are already very much convinced that this is affecting our health, and therefore we need to raise the voice of the health community. We need to articulate our messages on a very clear way. And here, let me go back again to the issue of the tactics for communicating what we are talking about here. There is a tendency to do a fragmentation of causes, and we are all probably part of this confusion. We have people arguing about our planet, people talking about next generations, people talking about planetary health, other people talking about air pollution, other people talking about climate change, as if it were a completely different agendas. I think we have a responsibility to pull on a slogan. You know, when you are doing a big campaign, you need as well a slogan. So let's be astute on this one as well, and having one critical message, and it's probably about health, about you know, tackling the causes of all of this and moving for health. I don't have that slogan, but maybe green is good for health, or for our health, you need to stop polluting, or don't pollute my future. I mean, something that clearly we need to concentrate. Otherwise, we will have a dispersion of messages and people thinking that there are different agendas, and we, instead of get reunited and being stronger, maybe we go on different ideas. It's like a woman, if we create this movement around a better health, I think the Baroness Jane said it very well. I mean, the health is the most precious, the highest good we had. So we need to protect that.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry to stop you there, Dr. Neira, but it's just we're running out of time, and
Sure.
we'd really like to introduce our final speaker. I think you're right, though. There's no wealth without health, and I think your slogan idea is a brilliant one. It's almost like we need to have another meeting to talk about this and talk about action points and action plans moving forward as women, as warrior women, to take Bhavreen's movement. Do you think there's a role for art to move forward some of these clean air messaging? Because I think sometimes the medium of art can be very powerful in conveying messages, and I think, Rosamund, that could be a question to you, because
I mean, I'm going to bring Jasmine in a minute.
Please
but
do.
my passion about art and performing arts holds no boundaries at all. And I think you need to find different ways of making the invisible visible. And I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to hand over to Jasmine, who has done amazing work. And the foundation is going to be working with Jasmine over this next year to create a sculpture in Ella's memory. So Jasmine, I hope you have unmuted yourself and people can hear about the great stuff you've done and what you are going to be doing for the 10th anniversary, please.
Thank you, Rosamund, and good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me. I was literally banging on the table when we were talking about storytelling, narrative, holistics. I became very interested in something called the Gaia hypothesis many years ago, and the idea that absolutely everything, planetary, person-wise, is all linked. And the thing about art, culture, literature, music is we are bigger picture thinkers. I did start as a physicist, and we are able to draw together many, many threads, which very often when things are siloed, people can't do. So I'm going to be incredibly brief and show you a couple of slides, because the only problem with art is it's impossible to do the hand waving thing. But yeah, and it's a delight that Rosamund has asked me to create something in Ella's memory. But I must sort of reinforce that getting to know the family, I realized this was such a personal story, and it wasn't just the story of a little girl that had passed, which, as everyone has said, I can't even begin to imagine that. But for me, it was about becoming better future ancestors. And that's what I'm trying to create. So the idea of a pollution that can actually absorb, but also within an area that's been regreened. So I'm just going to share a screen. Where is it? Oh, now I've just lost it. Penny, can you just bring up the slides, because I don't want to faff. Thank you. I had it already and then it just went. Have you got it? Oh, goodness, it's always like this, isn't it, when you're trying to is that working? Is that working? Can someone say something to me? Is that working?
See it yet? I think you have to share your screen, don't you?
To share your screen.
It's already on share. She should just be able to access it.
Is it on share? Is that it?
I'll do mine. Here you go.
Thank you. Sorry for that. Right. So this is real quickie, but it came from this idea of sustainability. If you think of all the SDGs, they are all completely interlinked, as Maria quite rightly pointed out. And if people actually appreciate that it's only, regardless of tech, regardless of our brilliance, if we cannot breathe clean air, then everything else is completely pointless. And this came to me. And now, next slide, please. My own son having an asthma attack, in 2016. It was the very first time I'd ever sat in A&E watching Kieran really struggle for breath. And at the time, I was not working with this material, but I thought I need to involve this in my practice. And if you think many museums in the world now are declaring cultural emergencies, it's starting to happen in the art world and in the world of creativity, that people realize that, we can create visual things that bypass data and language. Because, as I say, as a physicist before, I remember writing an essay about climate change, 20 odd years ago. Data has failed us to a large extent. Stories don't. visual things don't, they bypass things. And the asthma puffer, unfortunately, I'm now seeing as an icon of the 21st century. So this material that I'm using is called Noxtec. It is a byproduct of quarrying. It was not made to absorb pollution. It's actually incredibly inert, an amazing insulator. Had it been on the surface of Grenfell, for example, it would not have burnt. But one of the amazing byproducts of this material is that something like a 3 kilogram sculpture can clean a room of NOx for approximately 50 years. But this, of course, is not the answer to our problems. We need to consume less, we need to move less. Next slide, please. So yeah, I started working with this for a sculpture called Breathe, which is in Euston. Euston, I believe, was the second most polluted road in the country. Camden now has the greatest concentration of pollution detectors in the world, not as a result of my sculpture, but because of the amount of awareness that has been raised in the area. And she is a figure, been inspired very much by the myth of poetry, our ancient stories, the times when we realized we could not control nature. We were simply a speck in the universe. And is she breathing? Is she struggling to take a breath? I struggle with both. I go between the utopian and the dystopian all the time, but that is the meta-modernist world that we now live in. And if we go on to the next slide, from her, we then created something for the Horniman Museum. And it was then that I also started to understand that pollution does not just affect our species, it affects all species. And we think of the byproducts of the Industrial Revolution, combustion, creating the pollution that we have, but actually it's intensive agriculture, which is an enormous contributor. So I started to become very interested in the planting, because we now know that pollinators cannot find their flowers if there is too much NOx in the air, for example. And so Flower Girl, and we won a DEFRA award for her, Flower Girl is on the side of the South Circular. And we've had quantitative looking at the number of bees and pollinators, and it's been amazing. And the fact that it's a place that people go to also for contemplation, and they go to visit her regularly. And just very briefly, if we move to the very last one, so this idea of the environment, for me, perhaps conservation, rewilding, I know is a word that can create quite a lot of argument, but the fact that we are all completely interrelated is one of the things that is inspiring the piece I would like to make based on Ella. So I can't get away from the fact that the asthma puffer is so iconic to our 21st century, but surrounded by corn leaves, surrounded by the things that Ella loved. She was into flight and movement. She was a curious, bright child. Want to create a space in South London, which has planting, has meadows. I have more to tell you about this, Rosamund, but it's a space of contemplation. It's a space where pollinators day and night can return. And as I say, it will remind us that it's not simply about now, but all our practices, whether it's farming, combustion, consumption. I'm a great believer that if we were all far more creative, we would get the same chemical highs that we do from consuming. But that's the story for another time. But thank you. I know I've whizzed through it, but thank you so much for giving me the time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine, for sharing your work. It's absolutely beautiful and really important. So thank you for that. I'd like to thank all the speakers today for sharing your voices with us on International Women's Day. I think it's been a great conversation. I'd really like it to continue, maybe every month, but we sadly have to bring it to an end now. I think Andrea wants to close this event by talking about some really important work involving young people. Andrea, can I hand over to you, please?
Yes, thanks, Penny, and thank you, Dr. Neira, who's had to leave, and to all of our other wonderful speakers, campaigners, and everyone joining us. More about the statue, if you go to gofundme.com, First Breath for Our Future Ancestor, the link is in the chat if you want that, and we very much would love and appreciate your support in terms of promoting it as far and wide as possible. That would be great. We're very lucky at the foundation. We've got funding from the Clean Air Foundation, but we've also managed to get some funding from Impact on Urban Health. And one of the specific things that they're going to help us with is funding one of our ambitions to have young ambassadors work with the foundation to promote all of the things we've been talking about in this conversation about pollution in relation to air pollution, but there's probably some interconnectedness in terms of things like environmental pollution generally, you know, a lot of sewage pollution, things like that, that also impact on air pollution. And it would be great to have people let us know by contacting the foundation. If you contact us via the link on our website to let us know any young people that might be interested in getting involved, and we're going to find some way to create some kind of ambassador, I won't say training program, but you know, supporting programs so that we can help young people to keep this conversation going and help us push for the changes we need, campaign with us and help support them campaign, because it's their future that we're talking about and the future that we want to make cleaner, especially for them, but for everybody and their future ancestors. So we'll be keeping this conversation going, and we look forward to catching up with you all next year.